welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a eyeshadow palette collection video for you. So let's just get started because I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of a long video. So as you can see, I hold all my eyeshadow palettes just down this side. Over there is contours, bronzers, highlighters, blush and that kind of thing. So let me know in the comments section down below if you'd like to see a collection video on that. All of these eyeshadow palettes are part of my professional makeup kit. I do sanitize them regularly so that I can still use them as well. So let's just get straight into the video. We might start off down the bottom here where I've got a few smaller palettes. I've just got some pigments and stuff in here, so maybe I'll do that as a separate video. It's a bit messy in there because you know what pigments and glitters get like when they're in a little box. So we'll start off at the end here. So the two Drugstore palettes that I use on myself and on videos, I don't use these on my clients, are the Maybelline the Nudes palette at the top here and then the Blush Nudes palette at the bottom. Okay, so I'm pretty sure most of you have seen these palettes before. The Nudes one is just basically all nude shades and then the Blush Nudes is all sort of rosy toned shades. So next I have three Viseart palettes. Now these are pro palettes that you can order from Makeup and Glow. So I've got the 01 Neutral Matte palette, the 05 Sultry Muse palette and the 06 Paris Nude palette. Now you can probably see that I've got a bit of bubble wrap in the top of each of these palettes. It's just so that the shades don't crack or anything like that when I'm transporting them in my kit. I will open them up so you can have a little bit of a look at them. So this is the Paris Nude palette. It's all very shimmery, good for inner corners and bridal work. This is the Sultry Muse palette. It's another full shimmer palette. And this is the Neutral Matte palette, which is obviously all matte colors and they work in really well, the three palettes together. So you would have seen I've just done a video on these three palettes as well, doing some swatches. So these are my Zoeva palettes. So I've got the Cocoa Blend, the Caramel Melange and then the Blanc Fusion palettes. So I'll just quickly open them up if you didn't see that video. So that's the Cocoa Blend one, the Caramel Melange. This one's going to be hard to try and get because it's so bright, but that's the Blanc Fusion palette. I have the Stila in the Light palette, which is actually a backup because I have it depotted in a Z palette as well, but that's just basically the palette there. It's absolutely beautiful. These palettes are no longer being, what's the word? Distributed, I guess, but sometimes you can be lucky enough to pick them up. I think that these are probably the best Stila shadows out of all of them. I have the two Tartelette palettes. So I have the plain one and then the In Bloom one. But there's the Tartelette palette. It's all matte colors. Works really well when it's paired with the In Bloom palette. And there's the In Bloom palette, which is very, very warm toned. It's totally up my alley. A couple of shimmery shades in there as well as some matte ones. I've got swatches of these two palettes on my Instagram account if you want to have a look at them. And then finally for the bottom row, I've got the Chloe Morello and Ciate Pretty Fun and Fearless palette. As you can see, this one is pretty well loved. This is just beautiful. It's got some beautiful warm tones and purple tones in there, and those shimmery shades are just insane, especially when you use them wet. I'll grab these three Colourpop palettes that I've got up here. So two of the eyeshadow palettes are self-made, and then one was an actual release when they first brought out their shadows, but I'm not sure which one it was actually. Yes, it was this top one, I think. Oh gosh, I don't know. I've got a video on these particular palettes. So these are the eyeshadows. I'll just open them all up so you can see them. So they're the Colourpop shadows that I've got. Some mattes and some shimmers. I've got more mattes than shimmers. Mattes are totally up my alley at the moment. So they are absolutely beautiful. There's a little bit of fallout, but doesn't bother me at all because I do eyes first. Okay, let's hit this top row. Let's go through my Z palettes first. So I'll grab out the top three palettes. So these are extra large Z palettes and they hold all of my Makeup Geek and MAC eyeshadows. So I have divided them up. So these are basically all lid shades and transition shades in sort of that neutral toned family. And I've put little stickers on the top of each shade so I know what shades they are. And this one is full, and it's basically got all of my purple toned and warm toned shadows. So a mix of shimmers and mattes in there as well. And then the final palette is all of my browns, a few warm tone shades that didn't fit in that other palette, and then sort of greys, silvers and black. So I've still got a little bit of room to fit some more shadows in there. Okay, so this is my Stila palette. So I have depotted the In the Light, the In the Know, In the Garden and In the Moment eyeshadow palettes, and it fits in here absolutely perfectly. So top row is In the Light. Ooh, what is it? I think that one, yeah, I know that this one's In the Garden and this one's In the Moment, so this one must be In the Know. So this one is a fully matte palette, and then these ones have got mattes and shimmers. So yeah, I love this palette. It's really, really great. So this is another Z palette that's got Makeup Geek and MAC shadows in it. So it's just more of the brighter colors. I've got 3 shades down here that are majorly hit pan that were in one of those other bigger palettes. But I just swapped them out for fresh ones. And then down the bottom here, I've got some MAC and Makeup Geek pigments that I have pressed myself. So yeah, I don't use this a great deal, but it's always good to have some bright colors handy. This is another Z palette, and it's basically, I use this on myself mainly. I don't usually use it on clients, but it's just got some Too Faced shadows at the top. That was from a limited edition Christmas pack, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And then down the bottom I've got the Sigma Creme de la Creme, I think it was called, the macaroons or Creme de la something, I'm not exactly sure, but it was limited edition as well. And it's just all matte, some pastels, some bright colors, so always good to have in your collection. Okay, so still staying in the bright spectrum, I've got the Urban Decay Electric palette. This is self-explanatory on how beautiful it is. It's just got some great bright colors in it, which is really good for when it comes to Halloween, or if a client wants a pop of color, it's always good to have this available. And the pigment is crazy in those palettes. Okay, I've got 2 of the Kat Von D palettes. So the top one is the Shade and Light Eye palette, and then the bottom one is the Innerstellar palette. So I've used the Shade and Light palette quite a few times. I absolutely love it. Those matte shades are crazy pigmented. There isn't too much fallout. I absolutely love this palette. It's just a staple, I guess you'd call it. And then the Innerstellar palette, I don't use it as much, but I find if I have a client that wants something that's really, really shimmery silver, I always pick this one. It's just got really great pigment, and then it's got some beautiful purples, and those sort of taupey purples sort of in this sort of section here are just beautiful. Okay, moving along, I've got 2 Lorac Pro palettes. I did have the second one, but I just found I wasn't using it, so I sold it. So I've got the original one here, which you can see is well loved. It's got a great big broken mirror, and I've hit pan on quite a few shades, but this is one of those palettes that I pretty much always pack on a job, because I find that these matte shades at the top here are just perfect for mothers of the bride. And then the shimmery shades, yes, they might have a bit of fallout, but they just don't pack too much of a punch if you want to use a little bit of shimmer on an older skin type. Yeah. This is the Lorac Pro. This is the 3rd one that came out in that series. So this is very, very neutral. It's got some beautiful colors in it. It's a little bit cool toned, but then it also has a few warmer tones in it to, you know, add a little bit of dimension to the look. I love this palette. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to say that about every single palette that I own. I think moving on to my Too Faced palettes. So very similarly, there is one palette missing out of here, and that is the Semi-Sweet palette. Again, like the Lorac Pro palettes, I found that I just didn't like it as much as what or use it as much, so I sold it. So we have the original Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, which I've used on quite a few occasions. I still have the sleeve with the colours on it, so I'm sure you've all seen this before. It's beautiful. It smells beautiful. I absolutely love this palette, so yeah, it gets well used all the time. And then we have the Chocolate Bonbons palette, which is a lot more pink based. I actually have, I think if I was to choose, I think that this would be my favourite one out of all of the palettes. I don't know why, I think this shade here called Satin Sheets is one of my absolute favourite inner corner highlight shades. I don't know, I just seem to think that this palette works for me the best. And then the most recent one, the Sweet Peach palette, which again is absolutely beautiful. Some of those warm tones, some purple tones, and I can, as soon as you open it, you can start smelling that smell. And oh, some people don't like it, but I absolutely love the smell of the Sweet Peach palette. Moving on to the last three palettes, which are from Urban Decay. And you know, I think I have a thing about the second palette that brands bring out, because I was not a fan of the Naked 2 and I sold it as well. Like, what's going on there, Kate? So I'm sure you've all seen the Urban Decay Naked palette. This was my very first high-end palette that I bought, and I bought it via a shipping service and got it sent to me here in Australia. So it's probably pretty old, this palette, but I just cannot get rid of it. And I absolutely love the colour Sin in here, Naked and Buck, and this one here is called Toasted as well. So they are probably my favourite shades out of this whole palette. And yeah, I know, I love this. I love the Naked palette because it was the very first one that came out with this kind of concept, and now the market is absolutely saturated with Naked type palettes. But I just don't think you can go past the original. So the Naked 3 palette, which I find is really good for brides or clients that want sort of real pinky based tones. These sort of ones at the sort of the beginning here are really good if you use a base underneath or use them wet, or with a, yeah, like a glitter base type thing, something for it to stick to. The Naked Smokey palette, which I don't use as much, and I really, when I first got it, I thought that it was probably the best Naked palette that they had come out with. So yeah, I get a bit stuck in a rut and I just keep using the same things all the time when I'm getting ready for work. So I need to start, you know, using some of these palettes a bit more. So yeah. Okay guys, so that's pretty much a rundown of all of my eyeshadow palettes in my collection. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you would like to see what's going on over in this section over here. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!